Okay. It's 5:35. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you could join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, just a reminder, if you haven't signed in, please do so before you leave. So, nothing under proclamations, we'll go to the consent agenda. Is there anything you need to add?
No, just the only thing I'm gonna have to say about this is we have a few, third board vacancies for John Kushow and Mike Rodemeyer. Fill those two vacancies. I'll have to look.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Then moved and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Press 5-0.
Here in the back.
Do what?
Microphones aren't working. Can you speak in your microphones? They're not working. They're not on? They're not working. They're not working. Can you speak? We can't hear in the bathroom. None of us.
I'll speak up.
Thank you.
Moving on to public comments, petitions and memorials. I want the baseball and softball, so throwing. Yeah, you both have to go for it.
We don't have to. More support. Yeah, thanks for putting us on here. We don't really have an ask or anything. We just wanted to come and maybe spread some good juju or good news. Just give you an update on the fields. Obviously, you guys have been great supporters and we want to officially and publicly thank you for everything you guys have done. Especially Brad. You guys thought outside the box, which is what this project took from day one, to be able to get this thing completed. So just so you know, our goal is for the girls to be playing on it this Thursday, barring weather. And I know we built a turf field, but when they're talking 2-3 inches of rain, we'll see what happens. But they're gonna be playing on it. We're wrapping up some railing and stuff today. Have someone coming up to seed everything that you see dirt tomorrow before this rain. But we're really proud and excited the way this thing came together. So we're playing on it hopefully Thursday. We want to officially invite you guys. We'll spread it publicly here in the next couple of days, but April 27th is going to be our official like ribbon cutting and grand opening. Hopefully getting the kinks worked out and everything, but have a great night at the ballpark, and we'd love for you guys to be a part of that. So with that being said, even though the project is nearing completion, the funding is not. So we're not here to ask for money or a check or anything, but eyes and ears open any way you guys can help us to kind of finish this off, because this is phase 2. And most of you know that phase 3 is then renovating Tall Rocky Field at Noble Park to make that turf infield as well. So the quicker we can the bow on this field, the quicker we can move on and really complete this dream and I guess vision of a championship sports complex.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just wanted to give you an update. But again, we can't thank you enough. We know where the city's at, you know, financially and everything. So all the help with everything you guys did was a really, really big deal for us. So I'll turn it over.
Definitely made a big impact, all the efforts you guys did to get us there. Do you guys have any questions? Well, you have us close by.
Will that ribbon cutting be like right before the ball game, 4:30 type thing, or is it?
That's the plan. And then we'll have some events there with some of our major sponsors too, like Rainbow and Amberwell. But yeah, before the game starts, we'll do that. So we don't.
I say this every time you gentlemen show up, the amount of work that you put in to do this and the fundraising that you and the boards have done, I can't tell you how impressed I am with all that work. And the fact we were just talking and Dave was saying how nice that field is.
It's beautiful out there, you know.
Thank you. We're not here for the praise or anything, you know, people that write the checks that have supported us and stuff like you guys have done, that's really the hard work, but
Yeah, the community has definitely stepped up to help us get where we're at.
Absolutely, so.
I
Yeah, just
appreciate
wanted to
that.
share that, so.
Anything else?
Okay.
All right,
Thank you, guys.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay, nothing under old or new business. Moving on to an executive session to discuss matters of knowledge personnel. How long?
Let's do 10 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the city commission recess into executive session in the conference room for a period of 10 minutes to discuss matters regarding the issue of potential city personnel. The justification for closing the meeting is to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel. The open meeting will resume at 5:51 PM in the commission chambers and to include commission, city administrator, and city attorney.
Second.
In a second, any further discussion? Not on.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Pass 5-0. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
Their share.
How's it going? Right.
Next to that.
I'd like to make a motion that at 5:50, the city commission is called back into an open meeting. The commission took no binding action during the executive session. Moving to second, any further discussion? No, done.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion passed 5-0. Okay, moving on to item 1, chief of police interim appointment. Brett?
Yeah, so with Mickey retiring, we will need to appoint a chief of police, an interim chief of police. This is just by city, by the way the city set up. The chief of police has certain powers in the way they can carry out, so. In kind of that limbo period of where we're, appointing a full-time chief of police, we'll need somebody for the interim as well. And so at this point, I would ask the commission to appoint Brian Williams as the interim chief of police.
Okay, and at this point, I will go ahead and ask for public comment. I would, we have several items coming up where public comment will be allowed. I would ask that if anybody chooses to comment during public comment, come up to the microphone, state who you are, although I'm sure we all know each other, but state who you are, so it'll be on record, and then try and keep our comments to about 3 minutes. That's what we try and stick with. So having said that, are there any public comments over the, do I need to ask for a motion first or public comment first?
Public comment.
Okay. About, any public comment? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to appoint Brian Williams as interim chief of police.
I will make a motion to appoint Brian Williams as interim chief of police.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Brian as interim chief of police. Any further discussion? Don?
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Motion passed 5-0. Thank you, Brian.
We appreciate
Moving on to item 2, CNH land lease. Okay.
Yeah, so this is for 10 acres of city-owned property that's out at Forward. This is, it's out back right now, I think all of us kind of know what it is. Yeah, the old Walmart store, immature GPS, yeah. And so now it's, CNH, it's Casey Holland has bought them out. So they use that ground to test some of their GPS equipment, things like that, test their equipment. How this works is a 3-year lease. 3-year lease was up in 2025, so this will be for 3 more years. And it's twice what we would get out of our farm rent. And so it's a little bit lower than what we had the last time, because our farm rent went down some, but it's double that number. So that's why it's higher than what our regular farm ground rent is, because they pay us double for that. And so I would just recommend that we approve the 3-year lease for the 10 acres city-owned property to CNH Industrial America LLC at a price of $248.25 per acre, for a total payment to the city of $2,483.50.
Is this yearly or is this
That's
the whole?
That's yearly.
Okay, so it's 2,480.
Yeah, I should take that.
I entertain a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment? You said this. Is there any public comment over the CNH land lease? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 3-year lease for 10 acres of city-owned property to CNH Industrial America LLC at a price of $248.25 per acre, for a total payment to the city of $2,482.50
Second.
Per year.
per year. Yeah.
Been moving a second. Any further discussion? Not, Don?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion passed 5-0. Moving on to item 3, housing development discussion.
Yeah, so what I've been able to do here lately since the last meeting that we had 3 weeks ago now is I've really started to kind of dive into some of the numbers that were presented at the last time. And so that would have been that preliminary $885,000, $820. That's the engineer's opinion of the cost of the project. And really get into the details of that and start looking at it and seeing, by the contract, what is our responsibility? What is the developer's responsibility? And so I asked our engineer to kind of help me with that a little bit. And so anything that is items 1 through 8 on the opinion of cost would be the developer's responsibility. When we get down to, and really what I want to talk about today is, how we're going to proceed with this project, because I think that we have some options here that I've been able to come up with. Part of it, like street construction, that is not anything that city crews can do. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the expertise to, construct, curbing and, lay asphalt streets, things like that. And so I believe that cost is going to be, a contract price, that will be legitimate. It's when we get to the water and sewer line, on some of these line items that we have here, like, we had 8-inch PVC water line at a price of $101,150. That's the engineer's estimate. We had changed that at one point for really one main reason, the 6-inch PVC, and it's just because the line that comes in to feed that area is 6-inch, and it's 6-inch all the way back to right about 12th Street, I believe. And so upsizing it to 8-inch at that point isn't really going to help. We're still going to be limited by the flow that we have in front of that. I understand why they do that. That's for fire protection more than anything, more than a volume issue that we have there. We do have some opportunity later if we ever want to upgrade to 8-inch PVC. We could do that from a different location and bring that across, that 8-inch across, which would really help with fire protection there. I would see that as happening if that entire development, if that entire 38 acres ever really does develop, that may be necessary to do that at some point in the future. But judging from what we have on this project here, with how we're kind of limited with what we have in front of it, the decision was, we had talked about doing a 6-inch. It doesn't mean we can't do 8-inch, but the price I got was off a 6-inch. The 6-inch water pipe is at a price of $9.77 a square foot, or a linear foot, I should say. And that's $14,264.20. And so when you just start talking about water pipe, it's really a difference between if city crews are doing the work or if we're contracting this out. I believe that when BG Consultants, when they put these numbers together, these are all if we had contracted this out. And so what I want to talk about tonight is I would really like to get into and get an entire project cost of what I can get what our cost would be, sewer lines, water lines, really get into it, line item by line item. But I know that there are some thought, especially at the last meeting, about possibly, contracting this out. So before I got too far into it, and all this matters a great deal, because when we come to setting up any kind of RHID or, seeing what kind of city funds are available, how we're going to pay for this project, the city does have some options available there. And so I know I've talked in length about, economic development tax. I've talked about sales tax, the street sales tax that we have. You could use that for some of the street construction. You could use economic development dollars that right now aren't earmarked towards anything. They're earmarked as an expense, it's a capital expense, but it's just excess money that I have in there as a expenditure should we decide that's something to move forward with something. I didn't want to limit us to what we could spend. And it wasn't completely due to any one project. It was just, if we had something that came across that we could spend economic development dollars on, that's why I did what I did. Not during budget season last year. And so, yeah, I'd like to put something together, ask the commission, would you like me to go into those types of details? Or do we need to have further discussion on how we're going to proceed forward?
Well, I think it's a terrible idea that we're gonna put a line in that we might have to remove later.
We won't have to remove the line at all.
Okay, well, it's not gonna be feeding the total project though. Like if this line that we're putting in, are gonna be able to be used to further the whole project as a whole. And we're gonna have to basically redo it again, that doesn't sound good to me.
You would just have to grant another line for another source to do that.
You're still doing it twice, that's,
But if we're developing that, I mean, ideally, this is the seed that gets us going. Then if we're developing the rest of the 38 acres, we'd have to put more pipe in anyway, right?
Yes,
So that's when we would maybe do an 8-inch if
well,
necessary.
you would wanna do it twice though, and your existing line should in theory do the whole thing. With off the bat, like, doesn't make sense to do it twice. And that's, I guess that's the biggest problem that I have with a lot of this, is, are we doing this stuff just for this complex, or are we doing this to develop the city further? And because ultimately, I want to be able to, it would be great to actually get houses out there too. And so I just want to make sure that if we're doing infrastructures, that we need to be doing it in a way that is going to benefit the whole community as a whole, and not be spending all this money just to have this apartment complex. And I was under the impression before today that this line would be good enough to supply some houses too.
it will. So it's not an issue of volume out there. It's really, the way I explained it earlier, it's more of an issue when it comes to, like, say, your ISO rating on fire protection. Most of our cities have 4-inch, for example. It's not an issue of having houses on 6-inch water mains. In order for us to get a better insurance rating at that complex, it'd be better to have 8-inch pipe, just because of the flow. And so that's why, especially, that's why I believe that, in the engineer's mind, they were going to look at 8-inch water main. And part of the reason is because they'll say, okay, we can get more flow out of an 8-inch main. That's true. You absolutely get more flow out of an 8-inch main. However, when you have a large part of that 6-inch line in front of it, you're still going to be limited your gallons per minute by whatever that 6-inch line is. And so the way that this is designed, when the engineer is on this project, is that we're tying into an existing 6-inch water main by Ribbon Park. The 8-inch water main that I'm referring to is out on 240th Street, or, I guess some people would refer to it as West Miami, but it's actually 240th Street. But it's probably, at least another 1,000 feet away. So we'd be going at least probably another 1,500 feet. I mean, I'm kind of guessing at that point, but it would be a little bit more waterline. I mean, this isn't anything that I still couldn't do. If that's a desire, I can come back with both numbers, see what that number is. That way, and see what we would have to go through to do something like that.
What would we have to do to replace the 6-inch line that we were gonna tie this into? How far back do we have to go to get, be able to tie an 8-inch line?
So you would have to go back to almost the same spot. And so if you wanted to tie an 8-inch line back that far, you would have to go back. There's an 8-inch water main that comes across. It's right where the USDA office is. If you know, so it's right west of where the, old, Chinese restaurant was there. And so that USDA office, there's an 8-inch line that comes across the field. Currently, that line does not tie in with the, line that crosses it. That's a 6-inch main that crosses that. So those two are tied together. it comes in and ties into a 12-inch main over on, I don't know what the name of that street is. But it ties in by industrial. And so, but you would have to go back to that point in order to get any edge.
Yeah, but we could still just do an 8-inch line and then as the development built, if we needed to go back and replace. There's no need to do the 6-inch line in the hole right now. So if we do what we need right now in 8, then that part's done forever. And then as you grow out there, then we can put it on the list maybe to go ahead and do the rest of the line if you need. So I would definitely just do 8-inch line now and then that part's done.
Okay, so I can put that together for 8.
I don't think we're gonna save that much off of 6 to 8-inch pipe.
There really isn't a huge cost difference between. I mean, I would think. So, I mean, just doing what I did on Miami Street, you know, that's something that there wasn't a huge cost difference between the 8-inch and 6-inch line.
Yeah,
That's something that we could do.
that sounds good to me.
I actually have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
First and foremost, I did want to bring this up, that our last meeting, I did not catch it, didn't understand it, missed it. I thought that we were on a deadline to sign the developer's agreement. Had I known that the deadline for the grant doesn't start until we sign that agreement, I would have tabled it until we had all of this straightened out better. And you did mention it, you did say in the meeting, you could wait, but I didn't hear it. So I want to make everybody aware of that. Secondly, the question that I have about this RHID is my understanding in the simplest of terms that the city acquires a bond. It goes into the RHID, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
The projects, property taxes pay for that bond,
That's
Correct?
correct.
okay? So my question would be, where are we coming up with trying to find the money to pay for this infrastructure?
The property
And it
taxes
just,
won't,
sorry, it's kind of over the top of my
property
head.
taxes aren't enough money to even come close to that.
That's correct. And so especially when you're talking about the 885,000, you know, you're talking about property taxes that at that point are going to be making your interest payment on that bond.
Right, okay,
And so, and that's why I stated that, you know, it'll partially, you know, either fully or partially make that and probably, you know, more, because really what we have here is we have a lot of unknowns that you know, we don't know what that final cost is going to be. And we don't know what that final RHID structure really looks like yet. That's going to take some time with our, not just our bond attorney, but also who we get our bond through, which is Piper Sandler. We're going to have a conference and see what that structure really looks like before we really know how much per year we have to go towards that. And in the meantime, what I'm doing is just diving into the cost and trying to see, okay, what is that project cost going to be? And what does that really look like for the future? Because, you know, I'm going to have some kind of a plan before I can approach, like say the school district and the county. I'm going to approach them beforehand anyway, just to kind of get their, you know, minds around what that RHID is, what it's meant to be. A lot like at this district, you know, basically the exact same thing. It's just incremental taxes that help pay for those improvements. And so really that's what that's meant to do. And so, and then just try to game plan, I guess, on, okay, well, if the RHAD isn't gonna cover everything, what other funds do we have available? I mean, because the main point that I've made is that we're not going to raise anybody's taxes to do this project. And so that's the promise that, you know, this is why I recommended it to this point, is that I believe that that's possible to do. You know, so the average home owner or anybody who pays taxes in this town won't see their property tax raised because of this. And so, you know, these are kind of like plan A, plan B, you know, see what we have going out there and, you know, see how we can get this project done at the most, you know, economically feasible for the city of Highland.
I have a question.
Yeah, go
We talked about having some of the city crews out there working.
ahead.
If they're out there working, what's going on in the city? Are we going to be able to still get the work that needs to be done in the city?
Yes, and so this would be a lot like when I did the project back in 2019. You know, we did that on Miami Street, we replaced 2,000 feet of water pipe that year. And so that project, I had usually about a crew of 3, especially the last 1,000 feet, we had a crew of 3 of us that did that project. That project was a lot more involved just because of the utilities that we had to go around, gas lines, water lines. And plus you had existing houses that were on that as well. And so I had to keep one water main in service while we're doing the other one, you know, make sure that everything's done, get those services switched over to the new one, and then you get abandon that old water main. And so I had a crew of 3 doing that. Right now, you know, as far as public works goes, we have a crew of, you know, usually it's 10 to 12. And so if we take 3 of those individuals out of that are really dedicated towards the project, and that still leaves, you know, plenty of people to do the other work that's necessary to keep the city going.
You thought it would maybe a week, 2 weeks, by the time to put the water lines in?
Yes, and so my best day on Miami Street was 200 feet there. And so when we're talking about where this is located at, where it's open, there's really no reason why, you know, whether barring any weather problems that we may have, that we should be able to, you know, put more pipe in the ground at that. And so, because like I said, I had to dig, you know, when I was digging, I had to dig around a lot of utilities in order just to make that one.
And wasn't that a rainy?
Yeah, it was like the worst time of my life. The rain seemed.
Did you say the city had some of this pipe in stock? Or was that?
That's on the sewer pipe side.
Okay.
It was. We have, so that would be where you go to the 8-inch PVC sanitary sewer, the SDR 26. That's the sewer pipe that we have installed. We have 1,200 feet in stock now. Some of these items on here, like when you get to like your 8x4 service wise or your keys and your 4-inch PVC, those are the types of things that those 2 items are actually on the developer to do. That's their service connection to our water main, or to our sewer main, I should say. And so that's actually my contract to extent.
Do we have a breakdown of his expense versus our expense?
Only by the contract and what I have from our engineer. So service connections would be on at his expense, he comes to us. We would set, you know, meter boxes like we do anywhere else in town, and he would come to that meter box. And so that'd be the water services that we have. You know, we're gonna spend, prices are different than what they used to be, but you know, roughly about $1,000 water service. You know, so 8 water services. Some of it was shorter, you know, we're gonna spend about $8,000 or $10,000.
Do we have a projected new price? It's obviously it's not.
Not at this point.
Do we have an idea? I mean,
I don't want to ballpark it. I really don't, because I don't want to say something out there that I, you know, really off on. What I want to know is this something that we're interested in moving forward with? You want me to get this together?
I don't know how we sign a contract without having numbers of what we're even paying. This is.
Well, you did say like, even just the first 1 through 8, the 245,000, you said that's developer. So right off the top, we've got that. But I appreciate you wanting to make sure that you're secure for numbers. So I'm just guessing.
Which, I mean. That's strange in itself, because from the beginning, we were supposed to prep the site, so I don't know how. In 3 weeks since we signed the contract, that we're not liable for changing that, because we also moved this. from the original spot because it was less dirt work. And so now we're saying that we don't even have to, we're not even worried about the dirt work, so the stories don't line up.
We actually, the reason why that got moved is because of the utilities, the access to utilities was shorter. And so they were trying to get the cost of the project down. It's just shorter, so it was just leaving it where it was.
And like I said, I just have to keep saying, this is what's gonna get us started, and then we still have 38 acres that we can sit and discuss, and how we decide we want to move forward from there, so there's lots of options there. But we've gotta get started.
Well, the thing is, we want
May I interrupt? You said, I'm sorry, we cannot hear, you guys are not speaking up. You said because of. And then it was nothing, and we just absolutely cannot hear. And we're not gonna be able to go back on Zoom because it's not working. We're here to listen, to get educated, Virginia. You wanted us to get educated, that's why we're here, we can't hear.
So Tony, would you like to go ahead, we can scoot a chair up a little bit closer.
It's not
Okay.
just me.
Well, I realize that, but I'm just,
we'll all try to speak up.
Thank you. I apologize for interrupting, but that's why we're here. Maybe we all need to move up.
Well, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with anything until we have actual numbers on what we're gonna do. Again, I don't wanna do anything out there that we can't be utilized to do the whole project as well. So I don't wanna be putting lines in just to help developer. It needs to be as a whole, for the whole project.
so, but we're saying the same thing, aren't we? I mean, that's what you're asking about, if we want you to continue moving forward to get all that locked in, right?
That's correct.
So I mean, I think I'm hearing that we're saying the same thing, or? So absolutely, we need to keep trucking forward on this. And I mean, from the very get-go, when this BG Consultants paper was given to us, this was always worst case scenario. I mean, you were very clear about that from the beginning. I love hearing the worst case scenario, because then if you say we can still figure out how to get around it, that gives me a little bit of peace of mind that we're not all of a sudden gonna be stuck halfway through a project and not able to get it done. So worst case scenario, the more you can whittle this puppy down, that would be great. So I would say continue moving forward to see what all we're talking about. And Brian, I agree with you that if ultimately 8 inch is what we need out there, then if we're gonna do it, we wanna do it right. So I agree absolutely with that.
Yeah, I'd like to see the numbers with the city performing the water line and the sewer line with our portions of people. And if you have 8 inch sewer line in stock, show that as a. We've already got that in.
That should still be an expenditure to the company. I mean, because we're gonna have to replace that when we need it down the road. And it's gonna be more expensive than the last time we bought it. So that's, I can't take stuff off the shelf and donate it to a project and say, oh, well, that didn't cost any money, because the taxpayers already bought it, and it's gonna be more than when we buy it now. So we have to look at this as, we're not gonna do this the cheapest way just to make it go through and use pipe that we already have and use labor that we're paying for, because quite honestly, I don't think that they should be doing this much work. I think that it's too big of a project, and it's unfeasible for them to, you're saying you did it on Miami, that's fine. I just don't think that, I think that it's too big of a project, and I think that we need to have professionals. For one, you're gonna have to go down deep on the sewer line, I'm sure of it. That we're not gonna be shoring it probably as well as we should. We're gonna take a risk of hurting somebody. No,
We will not take that risk.
Okay.
Not ever.
right, so.
Can I say something first though, because I don't know if Dave was finished before he jumped in. Did you have anything else you were asking?
I already said my piece, that I think the city can perform this work. I don't think the sewer line needs to be that deep, because it's gonna dump into a manhole with a pump in it. It's greenfield space, it's wide open area out there, there's not anything to dig into. I just don't see why we can't do it. We have the equipment, we have people that know how to do it. That's my feedback.
people that are certified as well, right? Brad?
Yeah, we have people that are water and sewer certified, yes.
And the only reason, the other thing I'm not concerned about is the fact that we've got a city administrator who was first public works director, who he knows the ins and outs of all that. Communicates well with the department heads, and so if this is something he feels is well within our realm of abilities, I'm not one to question that. I also know that Brad's not gonna put any of our guys in any kind of dangerous position. You may have to make sure they understand that, because I can see them wanting to do stuff, but.
Well, the only time I've ever had any experience, and I wasn't on that project at all, this was back, Mike was still here, I think this is when. Dominic, but I think this is when we bought, the 1,200 feet of 8-inch sewer pipe, it was right around this time. They have a lot of experience using the shoring equipment, we rented it at that point. We do have some now ourselves too, but they did a good job there from what I saw. No, I never saw anybody down in there in a trench that wasn't shoulder.
I mean, if we need to get an estimate of what it would cost to contract out, I suppose that doesn't hurt anything, it just gives us more information. If, I still agree with what Dave says, that I do believe our crews can do it. I appreciate Tom asking a question about crew members and the fact we've got, 10 to 12 city workers and would only use 3. So that shows that the rest of our town's not going to suffer. So, I mean, do we want both?
Well, yeah.
Absolutely. I think that, yeah, I mean, that's something that I can do is
Okay.
get both. And really, the other ones, the contract side, for me, that's gonna be, easy work because all I need to do is just. I think the BG consultant's quote is going to be, what it is, minus whatever the developer's responsibility is.
Well, another thing that we need to take away from this is we're setting a precedence that we need to do this for everyone. And again, the reason I'm sitting up here today is because I bought 5 acres across from my house. And I wanted to put 5 houses in there. And the city told me no. And that I had to run the city sewer and it was gonna be $100,000. So explain to me why I have to put the bill, but yet we're gonna do all of this for another developer from out of town even. And I specifically said, how many, would you rather want 5 houses or do you want 2 houses? They said, well, that's a development then, and so it's on you. This personally happened to me. This is the reason I'm sitting up here right now. We're opening up a door to have to do this for everyone. And it's not fair that we're doing it for this developer, and I won't support it even if it's $100,000 and we don't have to take a bond on it because it's not fair. We have people sitting in here that have done the exact same thing and we didn't help them. I mean, I think that gentleman right there, I poured his driveway the first time he put that housing development in there, and he's done it twice now. And the city didn't help him do it at all. So why are we even talking about this? Like, we're opening up a door that we're gonna have to do this for everyone. And just to say that we decided this basically in 7 hours' time. I mean, this is just reckless. We don't have any plan moving forward of how we're gonna keep doing this. And quite honestly, we can't afford to do it anyways. Would I love to put city sewer up to everybody's house and use the crews? Yeah, everybody would love that. It's a $10,000-15,000 repair that you gotta do, but we don't do that, and we're not setting the standard at that. So that's what we gotta think about. This happened to me personally. And so, yes, it makes me a little upset that we were willing to just spend $900,000. And I mean, I'm not upset with what happened across from my house at all. It turned out wonderful. I'm very happy with it. But the city shot themselves in the foot. They could have had 5 houses in. And I think this happens more all over town, more than, I bet there's people in here that have stories of themselves that they've been told no. So. We're doing something bad here, I can tell you that. And it was sprung on at the last minute that we were gonna have to do this. That's the scariest part for me. So if we're gonna do this, how are we gonna what's it gonna look like moving forward afterwards?
And just, I will just.
Okay, I didn't know if you
No, I'll
we had to
make sure
wait for you to say something.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, we will definitely.
Thank you.
Do you, the commissioners, have anything else to say?
So these other developments that have been done, the streets, the sewers, the water, that is city property, the streets are city property, so the city wasn't involved in pouring concrete and paying for that?
Would you mind talking and just saying
Yeah,
that,
sure
if you don't mind?
My name is Dave Knockenville, and I have asked
I
this
come up to the,
Come on up, Dave.
question.
The whole point of this is everybody,
yeah, Dave, and like I said, I know, I'm not gonna shut you off hard at 3 minutes, but I think we have several people who are gonna want to
Yeah,
talk, so,
Could go on for 30 minutes.
yeah.
I finished the project almost 30 years ago. We paid almost $500,000 in taxes, property taxes, to keep it there. I still owe money on a project that was started 30 years ago. That's ridiculous. And we're sitting here talking about giving all of this to somebody that I don't know, nobody else knows, who knows? It just opens a bad door, because the big expense, I can tell you, is not what happens that first 10 years. It's what happens the 10 years after that and the 10 years after that. And that's where the projects in town start to fall apart. Because nobody really owns them. Nobody has a dog in the fight. None of them have even come up with the money to put it there in the first place. I mean, the first time I put the city put the main line in for the sewer. Or, I'm sorry, I did and paid for it on my project, the entire sewer line. When it came time to hook up each one of my units, the city charged me to hook up to the line I just put in. $350 a house. Now, that's the kind of stuff that would happen back then, and you're all about giving all this to people. And I started the project. We started laying bricks out there. I had Buzz Lewis come over from Highland, and he was laying bricks. And we hooked up to the water line out by the hydrant. And at noon, I get a call, I'm in the hospital in Pawnee, and they said, you didn't pay your deposit on that hookup. And I said, well, I'll pay it as soon as I get home. I'm not going anywhere. No, we're shutting it off at noon. My builder, who came with his whole crew to lay bricks, had to go home at noon because I didn't have a $25 payment that the city could have waited on. So those are the kind of things that really gripe me when I sit here and listen to what goes on. And you're all ready to give them the land. You're all ready to build a street for them. Who puts in the second street? You know, the city put in the street for me, but it was my money that put it in. I paid for that. But they got the cheapest bid and put in a street with no rebar or anything. So it didn't even last 15 years. That's a concrete street. And they made me put in a concrete street when no other addition in town had a concrete street. The city at that time said, from now on, we're always gonna put in concrete streets. So here I am, I'm kind of bitching and pissing and moaning, but I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm in it too deep, but I'm not gonna let it fail. But if you bring somebody from out of town, I can guarantee you, when it starts to fail, they're gonna walk. Whether you have the finished product or not, as soon as it looks like it's not gonna make money, they're not coming back. They're not even gonna finish what they have. I've seen that happen in other towns. And I've looked at a lot of projects because people know that I did this one when they ask me to look at them. And no, none of them will pencil. We can't afford to charge enough to put in the housing that people like to have. So we have to go with these 5 units you were talking about there. We have to take care, we have empty lots all over town that we don't use. Sewer lines go right next to them. Set up a project that somehow encourages people to maybe get that free, maybe get some other hookups and some incentives, but we don't have near the money tied up in a project that y'all talking about with this. And I don't know how it ever got to this point. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you. Dave, I would encourage you, if you have more concerns about that, I always encourage anybody to come in and talk to Brad. He's got the most open door being a city administrator I know, and so that's some things. And if there's more that we need to know as a commission, then we can better help out. But I mean, it's hard to say about stuff from 30 years ago.
Right, but I've been down that road several times, even with the streetlights. Guess what? I still pay the electricity for the city streetlights on that addition in town.
And that's why I encourage you. to
$30
start-
a month,
Yeah,
$15,000 since I started. Dollar cost on the average, that probably could have sent my kids to college, yeah. But
well, and we
that's the
love,
kind
we
of stuff,
love.
and I've been to city administrators. The ones that I've talked to, you're there, we're here, don't come to us with that, that's your street.
We got a new sheriff in town, that's all
I know.
I'm saying.
Well, I've talked to the new sheriff, I've raised, set up with sheriffs.
Thank you, Dave.
I mean, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay.
What's your name?
Not to call.
At this time, like I said, if there's any other public comment, I just ask that, once again, you state your name when you get to the microphone and try and keep it around that 3 minutes. And Dave, I appreciate that because you said you could have spoken for 30, so I appreciate that you kept it to the 30.
That whole list.
And that's not 3 minutes, take a break, and then 3 more minutes, so. Do I have anybody who'd like to come up?
I have a question.
Come on up.
I'm not even, as I recommend, I have a question. The wastewater and sewer lines, are you gonna have a lift station that pumps this wastewater to the?
Yes,
Okay, okay, who's gonna maintain that station?
city I have one.
Okay. So there's some cost there, so was this kind of an option from the gravity flow versus the lift station?
So when they went out and surveyed the site, I know that was one of their hopes when they moved it to the east, that they're going to be able to gravity, because I think, as you well know, the first manhole we have there is right by John Deere. You know, that's where that line starts. They were hoping that they're going to be able to gravity into that. You know, when they got to looking at the contours, it just wasn't going to be possible. And so but like I said, they had to go with the lift station at that point. And so the question there became, you know, how do they size the lift station? You know, and it's like, you're right. You know, as it comes to the lift station cost, that will be extra cost to the city as well. So the continuing cost of the city, you know, one thing that's not on here is running electricity back to that lift station. Something, yeah, you know, Dominic and I, and, you know, we talked about that this morning, but you know, that's something that we're going to have at that site. And so there's going to be extra costs when it comes to, like, say, you know, running the power. That's not something that, you know, city crews can do. And so we would have to hire an electrician to come do something like that. And the question would be, where's the power coming from? How long is that going to be? That's going to be a little bit of the unknown that I have right now. But you are correct to say that there would be extra costs there.
There's 3 phase or east of Green.
Yeah.
I guess my question too is, BG consultants, have they done a study on pressure, or have they done a grid study, Brad?
We have
on the
that.
water system at all?
The only study that we have on that is the model that we have from when they were designing the water treatment plant. They did some modeling. I think this was probably back, oh, it's been 15 years ago now, because I remember that's back when, you know, our engineer on the water plant, his name was Brian Foster. I had to go out and we had to do some directional flushing in order to model the system. The city still has that model. And when we talk about doing any kind of, you know, work like that, as like I said, that 8-inch line that I was referring to earlier was put in, you know, that was a water reach problem, I believe, on the west side of town. And so we have to make sure through our model that we're not having adverse effects on the system. There's a lot that goes into that we're not having adverse effects on the system by doing what we're doing here.
Well, no. Now, you are correct, as far as the 8-inch main should come off that site that Brad mentioned. The idea that there's 8-inch main down there, There is a 6-inch on Oregon that comes actually off the west water tower
Mhm.
that goes east. Personally, I would, maybe for capital improvements in the future, I would tie that 6-inch line to this new angle. Personally,
And so,
because this 8-inch main that's a dead end line, as you know, that can cause problems with, chlorine.
yeah, absolutely.
Although a PVC does maintain chlorine better, but I think BG should talk to this group, I think.
Mhm.
I mean, personally, I think this group probably has some questions. I don't think they're getting all the information personally. I mean, that's my opinion, but, that far down the pressure, I think, as you know, Brad, I think probably around 40 pounds, 45 pounds. It's kind of thick out there, so I would definitely tie those two lines together eventually, but that's here or there. I think the thing with the lift station kind of bothers me because that's more maintenance. I mean, if you can gravity feed a line, that's better. But maybe you can't. But I think again, BG to me, I think BG should be here and explain those options, so. I mean, that's, because I think these guys had questions, and I think you did a good job. But this, I mean, also, we have the continuation of fire hydrants. I mean, I don't know whether if you, because some of them think it's not in St. Louis, is it?
What's
Or is
that?
it?
It's not, it is in city limits, correct?
Okay. So you're probably obligated to put in some hydrants every.
Yeah, I think that right now, the preliminary plans have one fire hydrant, which would be kind of where the entrance of the development itself would be. But that's the only fire hydrant we have
Right.
in the plan right now, but you're correct, yes.
I mean, but, well, thanks for the time.
Thank you. And Rick, I had that little smirk for a minute, because I thought I've heard you speak many, many times of all this, of all the information about the city and the amount of knowledge you have is just, I still appreciate that. So that was what the smile was. I hope you didn't take it the wrong way.
No, I just, BJ Consultants in the past. I don't, well.
Thank you, Rick.
They only the bears, my favorite. You need to.
Thank you, Rick.
Right.
And I said, and we'd be foolish not to think that there's always gonna be some little things that are gonna come up. I mean, any project from a remodel at home to something this significant is going to have challenges. I mean, we're not pretending like we know everything, but we'll just keep moving forward and see what information we can get. So, any,
My name's Peter Monkey. I just have something, just as a person that really doesn't do all this stuff. My understanding is you guys have already signed the thing, you're already committed to it, correct? So it's already committed to it, but yet you're gonna use our pipe and our supplies and our stuff. So that means that if somebody has problems, it's gonna up our cost because, I mean, look at it our way. I mean, you guys you're costing us the tax. Like they've all said, there's nothing that you guys offer us for tax. Just upping the taxes. You can't say you're not gonna up the taxes. Who's gonna pay for what you guys are paying for out of the taxes to take to this? Because we're a city that's really dying. What are you bringing in besides that?
and that's perfect what you said. A city that is dying. We can't move forward until we can get housing. That's one of the things that when we had a housing study done a few years back, that's one thing that we said. We've heard from developers, from businesses in town saying we need houses, we need houses. Now, is this going to be the end all be all? No, but we've got to start moving forward.
But they're also complaining, they can't afford $1,000, and yet you're coming up with $1,300 and $1,500 a month for the rent, is what I've heard. How are you gonna do that?
Well, Rents, housing is not gonna get any cheaper.
No, it's not,
Yeah.
but it would be cheaper, just like they came up with the option of use your land here in town already. Divide it up. Don't just throw our money away. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
I just like to say, we've got to figure out another what, taxes is not gonna save us. We can't continue to tax our residents to try to save us. And that seems to be the motto that we've been using for years with several projects that have been brought from this commission that, you know, we're gonna force the taxpayer to do stuff, and I think it's pretty obvious that people don't wanna do that, and it's not gonna save us. It's people like that gentleman right there that is doing that and putting money in 30 years, making a beautiful property, and it still looks like it did the day he put it in. And those are the guys that we need to be helping and subsidizing if we're gonna do it.
Is there anybody else?
My name is Richard Scholl. I think everybody pretty well knows me, contractor around. Couple questions is, starting off on, if you're gonna use city help, and I'm not against it, but
Richard, get closer, I can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
I can't hear you.
I was just halfway down the throat, I didn't know where to talk. I'll try again.
My eyes will be the one that tells them I can't hear them.
Who would have thought she'd be the one? But if they've got enough time to go out and do that, this is extra, what we would call extra work. What do they do the rest of the time? I mean, if they can donate that much time to do this, to run sewer and water, let's say 200 foot a day. How many feet did you say?
1,400.
So a week, and that's not the sewer will probably take longer. I'm just asking, so if you take a month's worth of time, what are they doing the rest of the time? If we've got that much extra time to go out there and work on this project, I'm just asking, that's just a question. We did some projects around town, most of you know the East Ridge Addition. We fought tooth and toenail with this city. We finished up the water main, we finished up the sewer main, we finished up the streets. And we were told we were developers and that was on our back. And I had no problem. For the simple reason, it was between me and my good Lord. He was the only one when some of them, none of you guys were on there as far as I know, when they come out and they said, you will do it by this thing. You'll sign this paper. I said, no, I won't, because I don't know if I'm gonna get up tomorrow morning and you're not gonna have a piece of paper you can write my family in. I said, I will do it when I get the money, because you cannot go and borrow money on the street. You have to put up private collateral. I question myself, if this developer has got the funds to put up for private collateral. He probably does. But what happens if he gets some health issues? What happens if his company sells, somebody comes by, foreign company buys him out? We've done one project in this town. There was never a house built. Most of you know where that's at. Those lots could be built. We already stood that as taxpayers. It's got streets, it's got infrastructure there. And I worked in the city. Most of the time the developer stood. The city has its requirements, running it within so many feet. But after that, the streets and stuff was usually done on the developers, or if the city did it, it was called a special. They have the taxes on that over a few years to pick up the cost of it. I think they should have to put a bond or something up so they can't walk out like the last one did that wasn't from around this thing. You know, that's just me personally speaking, but as a business person, and this is big business, what guarantees they're gonna finish the project or stay here? Their word? If they don't know it to the good Lord, their word's worthless to me. So that's basically, like I said, I appreciate the time, something to think about. And like I said, I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that, but that's the facts of what we're setting.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Cindy Schilling, and I'm here to say, Richard already told you we had the East Ridge Edition. What I'm here to tell you is how the city treated us. He told you that we fought every way, we had to fight to get something done out there. But what I want you to know, the city did, is they had another city employee go to my mother's place of work and tell her that she needed to contact us and that we had, and I don't remember the hours, but we had to have our trailer, our job trailers off our property by a certain time. We were in Manhattan, an hour and a half away, and they gave us very little time to get up here, or they said they would have our equipment removed from our property. The other thing I would like you to know is back in April 20th of 2015, when we were asked to try to finish the street, as Richard said, we did not want to have to borrow any more money. I was having health issues at this time. And so, with that being said, we didn't know where my health was going. We could not afford to keep putting, and borrowing money. And so, we could have, but we told ourselves we didn't owe any more money here. We're gonna do it when we had the funds. And we had no doubt we were going to do this because we lived there. We wanted it to be good. However, what I want you to know is when we did come to the city and ask for help because the city was pushing us, the city said this. The commission felt there were a lot of other streets that needed done as well. The mayor pointed out the rules for a subdivision is the developer puts in the streets. The developer also was supposed to put in the mains, the electricals. So what I'm saying is, I believe the city has already set a precedent because of our addition, because of Dave's addition, because of the Indian Hills addition, and because of the Crestview addition. Those contractors had to put everything in. And I know you told Dave, there's a new sheriff in town. It still isn't right. The city has already set a precedent that the developer, they require the developer to do this. Now, you said there's, you said there was 1 through 8 opinion of costs that they said the developer costs or is responsible for. Would you tell us what those 8 points are?
And so that would be contractor construction and staking, mobilization, clearing and grubbing, temporary erosion control, seeding, fertilizing and mulching, street trees, site excavation unclassified, and embankment, whatever that is, I don't know what that is. But that comes up to $245,580.
I understand, and I may be wrong, but just from what I've been reading, this land out here has been platted already and the city paid for it. Is that correct?
It's in the process of planning right now, yes, but the city did, that's part of that $77,000 worth of engineering that the city agreed to do. That would have been 2025. Can't remember what month that was, it was last year.
On our addition out there that we were helping with, the city required us to pay for the replat of East Ridge. And so just want you to know there is more money that we put into this city. And I want you to know that was back on us. And the other thing is we had to come and beg the city to put a stop sign out there by your guys' place, Dave, on Zero one exit. And they said, well, they would look into it, and we did get one finally. But that's another thing, we had to come and ask every time to see if we could get something, and they fought us. And again, it's what you said, I don't think anybody were on here, I don't remember if you were working here, but I believe the city has set a precedence already with prior developments in this town, and I think what you are doing out here and offering this contractor that's out of town, that nobody knows, or maybe somebody does, obviously somebody knows, but, I don't still think it's fair to the rest of us, what precedents you've already set, or that should not be by the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you?
Christina Von Schmidt, and I have some questions before I make a comment. Has a feasibility test been done and is it available to us, the citizens?
What feasibility is that?
A feasibility test provides like it will describe to you what kind of price and housing people can afford in the community. It's different than a market.
And so, I don't know if that's part of the housing study that was done in 2022, but that's what the current project is based on.
So that's 4 years old. I looked online. You can't find much in the minutes for the city, so I didn't deep dive in every minute recorded, but, if somebody has that feasibility, I would like to get a copy of it, please.
Yeah, we do have that stuff, yes.
Okay. And then, I think it was in August, there was, you guys were approached by some people about, a mobile home park. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And what was your decision on that, to let them bring in some homes? Is that happening or what?
I mean, so how that conversation went is when they came and approached the commission about that, they came in and just had an idea. It was some land by Star Park that is now city-owned land, but there were houses there at one time. That's not where the park is dedicated. They had an idea about bringing a, mobile home development in, which would be classified as R4. Where that went from there was, at that time, the city commission, was generally, no decision was made on it. I think it was just kind of like, well, okay, let's get some more information. What I did from my side of it was get what those requirements are for R4. And I mean, the city does allow things like this, and it would have called, we would have had to rezone and things like that, but just what those requirements were, sent it to the developer, and I just failed to hear anything back.
So you wanted a plan, basically?
I mean, just what those requirements were.
Okay, so here I'm gonna give my comments off of that. I haven't been following the city much in taxes and all that, but I've been paying my taxes like everybody else and watching them slowly increase. And from what I've heard just tonight is that you're spending money without a plan. You're talking about phases, but you don't have a plan. And I do think that, you're rushing what you're doing. And this hustle about signing the contract. I guess the thing is when you're told, I'm a no person, when you corner me, I'm always gonna come out no. Because I feel like you're applying pressure and I want more time to think about it. I don't know what that would have hurt you guys to take a little bit more time. And the fact, if none of you know what a feasibility is or where you're at with that, I would ask you to revisit that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Angela Interim, first, my final question when I get done with all this is, I'm gonna wanna know. I know you guys all saw my request for a town hall meeting. That's the biggest question I'm getting from people right now is where are we seeing on that? I've been told I need to educate myself and I wanna learn, but I can't do that alone. A public town hall is the only fair way for the community to be informed and get real answers. Right now, many of us believe $885,820 is taxpayer money, and we don't know if the city has a plan to get any of that money back. The developer could build and never rent the units, build, flip the property and walk away with all the profits, but what protections do we have in place to stop any of this? At the last meeting, I asked you to table this for 2 weeks so citizens could review the facts, and that request was denied. Citizens learned critical financial details only hours before you guys made that vote, and that is not transparency. I will say what a portion of this commission so hastily voted to do has left me with a lot more questions than answers. Question one is I have a serious ethical concern. If the commissioner has a personal friendship with either the original investor, Mr. Anderson, or Mr. Webb, the current investor, should that commissioner have abstained from that vote? The appearance of a conflict of interest undermines public trust. Question two, have we paid Mr. Webb himself money to work on this project, either with Mr. Anderson or currently? I definitely have a lot more questions and will provide the city and commission with a copy of these questions before the town hall meeting if we are given that chance. From what I understand, this developer may not use any local contractors or purchase materials locally. Are we effectively funneling tax dollars to non-residents and out-of-town businesses? If this is true, how disappointing and painful for those of us who are invested in this community. We all agree we need more housing. No one is questioning that. We have been told negotiations took 3 years, yet local landlords and existing investors were not meaningfully engaged. Documents and the agreement you guys are discussing tonight has not been made available to the public. So we're sitting here listening to what you guys are saying with no information on what you guys are planning to pay for. Why are we paying for their landscaping? I will say I'm very disappointed that the commission chose to do what was best in the moment and not in the best interest of the city of Hiawatha as a whole. Yes, we do have a time limit. That countdown did not start until you signed that paper. The commission only learned of those very high numbers hours before the meeting. Citizens learned that in even less time. My personal feeling is that not even our commissioners had enough time to ask questions and fully investigate what that agreement held. I feel the vote was one of personal decisions and not one of doing what majority of the citizens would have wanted. I stated at the last meeting, when you get in a hurry, you make mistakes, and I feel a lot of mistakes were made, and moving forward, you owe the citizens of Hiawatha full and complete transparency. And not have we been talking about this for 3 years and we need to drop it. Mr. Webb can change his LLC name the day of our meeting after working under a different LLC for years and give a bunch of excuses why, but a few thousand citizens are not offered the courtesy to see what else was changed or added before you guys voted. And I would like to know when the request for his name change on that $650,000 grant was actually submitted to the state. We have told you about the street fund that's sitting there. You told us about this street fund that's sitting there to be used for part of this project. Yet we have massive flooding happening on 6th Street that damages someone's personal property every time it rains. If this money is just sitting there, then let's fix that issue for citizens that are already here and are having to pay for their property being destroyed. The grant is $650,000. So let's be clear, since there seems to be confusion. This is not the money that was voted on a few weeks ago. This is an addition to. Land was approximately $30,000. Plotting was $80,000. And we agreed to additional funding in the amount of $885,820. Please let me know if those numbers are incorrect, as this is part of the learning process. That makes the city of Hiawatha, if not the biggest, the second biggest investor in this project. And as of today's date, the only person that has any teeth in this game is the city. From all the documentation I have found so far, as of today's date, our investor has put $0 down. He has nothing out of his pocket. And from what I have seen in documents, if it is correct, he's actually made money working for the city. Sorry, but for a total of $1,648,820, the city is on the line for one way or another. I think moving forward, the city should be posting this information publicly and giving us adequate time to be looking at it and asking questions. I came here because I care about Hiawatha. I want to be educated. And if I'm misunderstanding something, please give me the correct information. Help me to learn. I stand here before you being fully transparent and asking the hard questions. I'm not intentionally posting misinformation on social media platforms or sending private messages telling people to educate themselves. The divide that has been caused by this topic over the years is a lot bigger than I think this commission even realizes. With the number of landlords we have in Hiawatha, it should say something that very few of them are here or even have conversations with our commissioners. They have no trust in the city anymore, and to me, that's sad. These people have invested their own money in Hiawatha. At the end of the day, we have all kinds of opportunities here, and let's take care of what we have. Fix what needs to be fixed and figure out how to grow in ways that Hiawatha truly needs. Let's support what we have here in town before people are out of their homes, which we do have another apartment complex here with 24 units that is in foreclosure. And businesses are shutting. This is all a real possibility, but nobody's talking about how we can help that. I want our leaders to slow down when important decisions are on the line, to be fully transparent, and to put the city's interests first. Let's get the correct people to the table having conversations and start with the citizens that live here and are your neighbors, the people who voted you onto the commission, put their faith in you to be their voice.
Angela?
Ian Sheets, can't say it any better than Angela just did, but I took time to type it up, so I'm gonna do it again. 3 weeks ago, the commission was presented with a $900,000 price tag for the duplex project on the west edge of Hiawatha. By all accounts, the price tag was new information to the commission, having only been provided the same day as the meeting. It was also brand new information to the public. It's clear that the scope of this obligation was well beyond anything that had been presented to the public, and very likely beyond what the commission itself had expected. There was no critical deadline to meet that would have prevented you from digesting the information and answering the multiple questions posed at that meeting and at today's meeting over the weeks between it and today. The city administrator had made it clear that the 60-day supposed deadline reference only began once the agreement was approved. The real deadline, I think, is probably somewhere in August for public improvements in that. Thank you. And Commissioner Paulson, I appreciate you acknowledging that. I know you were on Zoom, that makes it a little more difficult. The responsible and prudent thing would clearly have been to table the agreement and come to the next meeting better prepared. However, instead of allowing time for both the commission and the taxpaying public to process this expensive new development, you went ahead and approved it. No plan was in place to fund it, only concepts of how it might be done. No understanding of the city's responsibilities versus the developers. As of tonight, we now have item 1 through 8, but at the time, we were apparently okay with the city paying for the developer's part because those costs were combined in the prices that you were given at the time. There was no real contemplation that if this was even the best use of $1 million to address our housing needs, because clearly that new price tag changed the scope of the conversation. And most importantly, there was no time for feedback from the citizens that you're supposed to be representing. The justification at the time was this vaguely defined and really imagined time crunch and generalities like we have to move it forward. We've been working on this for 3 years. We're lucky to have a developer. There's no question that Hiawatha needs new mid-income housing. That's been well established in studies and the like, and it's reasonable to expect the city to spend money to facilitate it. I can definitely sympathize with the folks who got a raw deal from the city in the past. That doesn't mean we need to double down on bad decisions. It does mean that we need to keep whatever new precedent we set though. That's for sure. And we don't have a very good track record of keeping equal treatment for equal folks in this town. So we'll say that once again. But regardless, brushing aside valid concerns for expediency is not leadership. It's certainly not stewardship of the tax dollar. And as Brian said earlier, it's just recklessness, in my opinion. The citizens of Hiawatha deserve an informed and objective commission, not a reactionary, tunnel vision one, desperate enough to think that any deal is better than no deal. I think there's a lesson to be learned here, and for those of you who are going to be around for the long haul, I hope you take note. We need you to do better.
Have an answer on a town hall meeting,
I don't have that answer
the commission. As far as have an answer on that, as far as holding a town hall.
I don't think anybody up here is gonna, as opposed to a town hall meeting at all. I mean, we just need to figure out when, where, and
Can we figure that out this evening, since it's
Yes.
been dragging on and we're continuing to make decisions?
I mean, we don't have anything to talk about because we don't know what it's gonna cost and we're gonna pay for it. We've gotta figure that out before we have a town hall meeting and then we can have a town hall meeting and just put it out. That's a problem.
Hello. Sorry, I didn't have time to run home and clean up. I apologize. I should not be wearing a hat on here and should be wearing some clean clothes, but I didn't have time. No matter what you guys do, people are gonna be unhappy. I realize that. But as a resident of Hiawatha, I would just ask that you guys go into this thing with eyes wide open and slow down a little bit. If all know my background, I was a contractor in California where there was a lot of lawsuits going on, projects. I did a ton of electrical projects for new housing developments. I did a lot of work for LLCs. Our city attorney can talk about that. There are hazards when working with an LLC. I would hope that if you guys move forward on this, that you would have certain things that we require, obviously payment and performance bonds. I'm assuming that that's part of the contract, both payment and performance. Do we know?
as part of the, I don't, we haven't gotten that far into it yet, but normally we do require it.
Okay, I would hope that you guys have a pre-construction meeting and you literally list out the details and you guys come up with exactly what the scope of work, a scope letter. I'm just going from my experience, and I've been on a lot of projects where everything is gung ho for the first quarter of the project, and then everything stops because the owner or the cities don't have the funding, their original budgets are not accurate. That's very, very common. And then everything stops, and when the project's being ran by an LLC, they have limited liability, so I would ask that you guys be very careful with that. The county has the same problem the city has, we need money. And, we've had to raise taxes, you guys have had to raise taxes. I will tell you that, I would ask that going forward, that you guys think about partnering more with the contractors in this room. We have local contractors here that have put money up and built homes in this city. And the way things work best is when owners and contractors work together and brainstorm and come up with ways. We used to get paid all the time to do, basically, they would hire us to go in there and look for ways to save money. And if you sit down with your local contractors and say, hey, here's the situation we have some sewer pipe, we don't have electrical pipe, we have this. Get these guys working as partners. If you want to develop this city, it seems, from where I sit, it seems like we shut everybody out. And one of the things I'm trying to do across the street is I'm trying to work with the townships. I've sat in Brad's office twice already and said, it's time for the county to partner with the city. No more of this. Nobody wants to play in the same sandbox. You have some really quality contractors around that you could bring in and say, hey, we're thinking of developing 3 acres out here or 4 acres. Can you guys tell me what you think the cost is? These guys know what the cost in the current conditions are. That's your best way. When you move forward and you say, we think, that's not good. You could sit down with some of these contractors and say, can you just give me a budget? They'll do it for free. Most of them will. And that way you can have local contractors giving you local pricing with the current conditions. And then when you move forward, you kind of have a better idea. If you do not know your costs, your true costs, you will fail at farming, you will fail at developing houses, you will fail at any business if you do not know your true costs. So I think it's time just to slow down a little bit. Do I want to see houses come in? Absolutely. I'd love to see more houses come in, but I'm worried. I'm worried that we're going to move forward and then we're going to find out what I've experienced so many times.
well, we're 40% over budget, or we're 30% over budget, and the bank's not lending any more money, and the contractor's pulling out. It seems like a bad idea. About 2 years ago, I was asked to attend a HEPID meeting on it, might have been a little bit longer at the golf course. And it was trying to bring people in to build homes. And I left that meeting and I contacted some friends that I did a lot of business with. And I said, you guys want to build a few spec homes back in Hiawatha, Kansas? Had the guys fly out and looked at our construction costs at the time. And at the time, it didn't seem feasible to be able to build basically a 3-bedroom, two-bath house, 2-car garage in Hiawatha with the current cost, and then be able to sell them and make a profit, because at the time we didn't feel that the market was there. If I would have been offered grant money and here's some property for free and we'll provide the infrastructure, I would have built 5 or 6 homes like that. That was never on the table. So my question to you is that going to happen if I want to come to the city and say, can I build 3, 4, 5 homes? Am I going to be offered the same thing? I'm just asking, because that changes the whole equation with, I know I've got builder buddies that would jump right in, because that's not typically how it goes. You know, usually as a developer, you're on the hook for the infrastructure, on the hook for buying the property, and then obviously for construction costs. So my question is that something that you guys are willing to do? We want to develop, there's what, 30 acres out there? My question is, are you offering that for other developers? And I don't know if you can answer that tonight, but that changes the whole game for people like the builders that I know.
I mean, you're right, we have 38 acres out there that we are hoping is gonna continue.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
Okay. Well, that's basically all I had. Like I said, if we can partner more, if we can get our local builders involved, have them sitting in meetings and doing cost studies, value engineering it's called, and they can bring you what the real costs are. I think that there is a possibility, especially as interest rates trickle down. I think there is a possibility that we could build a better mousetrap and save some cost and get some homes built in Hiawatha.
I also look forward to the comment you made about the city and the county continuing to work together. I mean,
Yeah.
we absolutely have to do that, so I appreciate hearing that from you.
I think it's wonderful. We're trying to work with, like I said, everybody. We cannot change, and I know some people have talked about their experiences in the past have been bad. And we have the same thing across the street. There's been some bad experiences. We can't fix the past, but we have to have a clear vision of what we want to do with this county and this city. And the only way it is better than any of the other surrounding counties or cities is if we work together more. So that's what I would offer. Thank you.
Appreciate
I'd just like to say one thing. We keep saying we're not gonna raise taxes. And possibly the economic growth tax is one avenue that we would possibly pay for this. My problem with this is, I don't have a problem with using economic growth. I mean, that's what it's for, but when that was passed, it was presented to the public that if you don't pass this, it's gonna be a 5 to 10 mil raise in your property taxes. So of course it passed. My problem with this is we put it in for 15 years and we only needed 5 to pay off the bond. That's not very transparent. So I can see even 10. I mean, that's still double the time we needed. And yes, we paid it off a little early, which may be a year. But 5 years is what I think we paid it off 4, is that correct?
I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think we paid it off early, we needed 5, but yet we sold the tax to the people for 15 years. And we don't have, I just keep hearing it, we don't have any plan for this money. We have this money that we can use. Why did we sell a tax to the people for 15 years with no plan for the economic growth money? You know, I think both of you were on the commission when that happened. So I just asked that question, is what were we doing with that when we passed it for 15 years?
mean, I don't know what else to say to that. I mean, like I said, we have to find something that meets the standards of what we can spend it on. This is what we're going with.
Candy, do you have a moment? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Okay, so I did mention that I was on Zoom our last meeting. I did not hear Brad say that. You know, all I heard was, we've got a grant, we've got a deadline, we've got to meet these deadlines, and I did not hear him say that this was not going to go into effect until that developer agreement was signed. In turn, I went for signing it.
Okay.
Okay, so my question of you, what would happen if there were ever a motion to rescind the developer's agreement?
Well, I mean, obviously, we have a contractual obligation, so city would probably be liable for some damages. I hesitate to guess, without taking a look at it, what that would be. I think the 60-day deadline was for certain things that we had to do. There was other.
Through the grant?
Well, no, there was other deadlines tied to the grant. The grant of it that we weren't involved with. But the 60-day was to get us to a point we have obligations under that contract, noting, the RHID, that's what Brad said, he goes off to the county, so he goes off to the school, we'll look at that now. Add the warrant taxes on properties in the city of Iowa. We're gonna be asking the school board and the county to join the RHID, so, more of those tax dollars will be used to pay off this project. I guess maybe I'm skirting around or not answering the question, but,
Well, my question is real quick, if we have obligations to it where we could be, when we've done a contract, property's not even zoned yet, and what happens if it's not zoned? And then he can sue us? Is that what you're saying?
we have agreed to rezone. So, dog couldn't sue us, yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, anybody can sue us at any time. I mean, I don't think the answer is who can sue us, the answer is damages are not fair to answer that question tonight, so I have.
I mean, that goes back to, we passed a contract for a housing development on land that's not even zoned for what it's sold. And that's just one more thing that we jumped the gun again. We should have had it all in place already. So.
I guess I'd like to know what kind of liability we're taking on if we were to rescind it.
I'll sit down with Brad and can shoot you an email on that.
Could you look into that?
Sure.
Sure.
Do you have any other comments?
I do. Thank you for your information, Mr. Waring. As a long-time public servant for 23 years, I hats off to you. It's hell if you do and hell if you don't. It's hard to make the right decision. My question is, you have property out there that was free and clear. As of today, I would be curious as to how much money you've spent on it. You know, I don't need the answer right now, and I don't want the answer right now. The other thing is that I'm not understanding why this project, and why we've gone through so many developers. And when I was on the commission, it started out to be low income housing, low to medium, I will say that. And now it's up to 13 to 16 a month. And Mayor, you made a comment at one of the meetings when I was on Zoom. The reason for that is because the hospital has, what'd you call it, the nurses that come in out of town that need a place to stay. But what about our local people that need a place to stay? That don't make that kind of money, that the hospital's not gonna pay for them, that the bank's not gonna pay for, that other people that make social security type living. That's who we need housing for. The other thing is the money that we're spending or going to spend possibly on this so-called new development. Why couldn't we save that money and finish maybe the streetlights? What an idea. That's been in the makings for how many years now? The other thing is the streets that are seen. Oh my God, there's not a street in this town, in this city that doesn't need repair. But we have 1.7 million that you want to take out taxes to pay for development that I predict, if it goes through, mark my word, this developer is not only going to get big bucks from the city of Hiawatha, he's going to sell it to another developer and make more big bucks. And what's going to happen to Hiawatha? As my father would say, you're going to end up sucking hind tit. I have no idea what that means. It's a really old 1920s cliche. You just say what did you say?
Those make the.
You're gonna end up sucking hind tit.
Thank you. So that's an according twice.
I
I don't know if anybody wants to follow that.
I'll follow Tony. Hi, my name's Jim Ellis. I'm fairly new to Hiawatha. You guys know me. I've spoken to you before, and thank you. My background is I was a mayor and a commissioner for a small city for 14 years, similar to Hiawatha in California. As I'm listening to this, I'm not trying to beat any of you up, but you all have valid points. The public has some incredible points. My questions, there's some questions I have had as a new citizen here, watching the proceedings take place, is I've done hundreds of contracts as a mayor, as a commissioner. The fact that there's not a developer here, you guys have had 2 meetings that I know of, and the developer's not here to answer questions, stand behind the product he's selling. Bam, that's red flag number 1 to me. I would never sign that contract. The fact that, and I'm not trying to beat you up, but that you're signing a contract with no numbers. I believe that the public, there's outcry, there's great outcry here for transparency. The fact that I have an agenda here with absolutely zero information other than this meeting's taking place. Items 1 through 8, I have no another clue. I've never seen a copy of a contract, never seen a copy of the feasibility study of any part of this thing. So it's hard for the public, and they will come up with answers in absence of question, in the absence of answers available to them to see. They'll make up numbers, they'll come up with numbers, they'll come up with scenarios. And I think that's what you're seeing here. But I'm looking at the money being spent. You're signing the contract without actually seeing a contract, without hard numbers, not to exceed the following costs, what the expectations are for this contract. And that's a scary place to be as a public official. It's a scary place for the citizens to have to see it. The precedents you talked about, Brian, yeah, I would have real concerns about that too. I understand the concept. We had to put a 12-inch water line, 3,000 feet of it in to facilitate the sale of future properties.
And it was a public outcry to do it. It had a purpose, but it was 12 inches for one business with a future potential of selling, I believe, 48 more acres. But the line was put in as 12 inch. People say you only need a 4 inch line for this one business, but it was put in for a reason. That the cost of doing something twice is double what it costs to do it once. So if you are gonna go ahead with this project, yeah, I would put an 8 inch line in. I would do what this project is going to be someday. But the better question I would ask on Hiawatha is, I've watched 2 houses burned down and torn down since I've been here. I've watched another couple torn down. You have empty lots all over Hiawatha. Take the same money, put it into $50,000 low interest loans and actually make money off it. Give it to a flipper, a developer, me. You know, I'll pay my house twice. So that we can upgrade houses and start making market housing. The market rate housing part of this component scares the bejesus out of me, that you have houses here. I've looked at rental markets and thought, do I invest some of the money I have into rentals? And you're gonna build houses that nobody can afford. It's kind of a weird concept to me when you have houses already in town. Have you guys looked at ADUs, traditional dwelling units, being allowed on properties so small people like me could put a house in the back and rent it out? I know you shut down the mobile home idea, but rezone area for that. Tiny homes, a lot of people put 2 houses on them. Tiny homes that suffice for short-term rentals, for traveling nurse rentals. I loved your CDBG grant that you guys put forth with the roofing. Beautiful concept. I've seen hundreds of CDBG grants go through, and the way you guys did that, I think it touches the people of Hiawatha. It's beautiful that it actually goes to a citizen. I would like to see close to $1 million be spent, kind of similar function here, that allows the rundown houses, the people that can flip a house and say, I own it, let me throw some money into it, a low interest loan, pay it back, and flip this house to someone who wants to move here. But those are my questions I have. Not trying to beat you up, I'm just trying to sow some insight that the lack of transparency on here, that there's no information available. You have an agenda and nothing else. There's no supporting documents. I know Kansas Open Meeting Act doesn't require you to issue those, but I think for your future reference, having the documents available for the public to see would eliminate a lot of the questions, doubts, the questions at Facebook, the questions on Walmart, that whoever's having questions in the backyard. You guys create this yourselves by not putting the documents out there, let the public see, and let them ask the questions they might have. Let them be a part of the government that you guys are doing. So, first red flag though, I would still question, where's your developer, guys? I've had lots of people come before me to ask for the city, for me to vote on stuff. And without someone here to represent me, I'd be like, what's the story here? You can't even show up. We're gonna give you $1 million. I would, red flag big time. So I thank you. I thank the public for showing up. It's great to hear the public comment, the questions, and that this commission supports you guys doing so. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Have we officially signed this agreement?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm not understanding is, we signed an agreement saying that we would pay for all of this stuff. How are we turning around and going back and saying, we're agreeing to this amount, we're agreeing to pay for all this, but now we're gonna go back in and say, we're not gonna pay for the whole rate? Can you resend it? That, I guess, I haven't seen the agreement. So that last meeting we had, it was, we're agreeing to pay for whatever it was, and like I said, I know you specifically asked sidewalks, trees, this type of stuff. We haven't physically seen it. But we assigned an agreement that said, hey, we're gonna pay $885,000 and we're gonna cover all of this. But now you're saying, I'm looking at the agreement and I'm not gonna pay 1 through 8. Was that 1 through 8 not on that original agreement that we already signed?
No, so the agreement that we signed were for the public, improvements, so that'd be the water, the sewer line, and the street itself. And not for the grading or anything like that, not for the site development itself. And so when you have to get down to what that site development is, in order to level that out so the houses can actually be built on that property. That's gonna be their part of it. And the only other part on there that, you know, would be that just by contract would be their responsibility, would be those connections to like, say, things like that. Yeah, and that's just, and that's honestly, that part is spelled out in the contract. It doesn't say that the developer is, responsible for the site development, but also does not say the city is. That's the information I'm getting came from our engineer.
So how do we get something that says, you know, this is what this $885,000 is covering, and this is what we're agreeing to do? Like we said, we've kind of set a precedent here, but we don't know what that precedent is, and we don't know what we're agreeing to.
That's what I'm looking for.
The development agreement is available on the website.
Okay.
It has much things. The entire packet from that last meeting is available. And it has been since like 6:43.
If you didn't hear that, development packet is on the website.
The agenda packet from the 3/9 meeting, I put it out for the next one. The website has been a work in progress, but I have been updating it. Thank you.
The reason I question, asked Andy to look into rescinding that agreement is basically to slow things down. The totality of circumstances, the way that things have just blown up. You know, I'd like to try to slow things down. Because I mean, I'm totally against it or I'm totally for it, but I just think based on all the information and, you know, the comments from the public, et cetera, regarding previous developments and that sort of thing, I think it's something that we need to really look at. I just don't want to get sued over it.
Can anybody answer if we paid Mr. Webb anything from the city of Hiawatha over not just this grant, but over the previous?
For the MIH applications, yes. He
So,
was he was our writer. for those.
and so did he write the one that we just got this one for?
He did, yes.
So we haven't gotten the previous stuff, we've for different reasons, but the one that he submitted that he benefited from, we got.
No, he submitted
He
all.
submitted all, he's been the writer. for all.
So that's what I'm saying, that but we didn't get the first two, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So we didn't get the first two, and the first one had Mr. Anderson on it. And then we switched up. So we didn't get the first two, but now that he's the beneficiary, and what name on that LLC went on that grant?
I'd have to look it up, but I think it was WPS LLC, something like
So
that.
how do we find out when that got changed with the state, on who the recipient is for that grant? Because you guys just found out the day of our last meeting that he had changed his LLC name.
The recipient of the grant is the city of Hiawatha.
Right, and it says you're partnering with, and your state guidelines.
But we were the ones that actually applied for that grant.
Right, but it, on that grant, you guys are required to put who you're partnering with, and the state requires for you guys to immediate notification of name changes, beneficiary changes, or anything else. So when did that get, I mean,
I'd have to look at the KHRC. I know the developer's working with KHRC on all those types of documents as well, so.
And to understand that MIH grant that we tried for 3 years to get, and I said, he worked with us and with HEFID to write this. It's a very competitive grant. And that's each time that we didn't get it, we met again, discussed what can we do to improve this. And so that's why it took 3 times. But like I said, it's a very competitive grant to get. And that's why, I mean, there's nothing hidden in there. It's just that, just like everybody, the state has only so much money
yeah, right.
to give out. And
Well, I guess that
each
just
time
takes
we
you back
made
to-
it more attractive on just developments and things that we were doing to show that we were serious about this.
Well, like I said, that takes my concern back to, we are 120 grand minimum into this property out here. Plus the money that we paid Mr. Webb. What is he out of pocket as of today? What has he paid as of today? What teeth is he putting in the game here? We paid him, he's made money off us, we're giving him things. What has he done to show us his level of commitment with all of this?
As part of the agreement, yes, too, as part of what KHRC requests is for him to be able to put up some kind of capital investment into this project, show that he actually has capital investment in this project. And so I'd have to look at what that actual number is at this point, or it's somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 as far as why his capital is, what he has to put into the project on top of taking out the bank loan in order to actually construct the units
And
themselves.
we have documentation to show that he's able to take out that bank loan and to
Yeah.
put that capital
We
up.
we have all that documentation through KHRC has.
And my other question, and I brought this up, the conflict of interest. Where does that go with anybody abstaining? I know when Tony Paul was on the commission, there were several times she abstained with those to AHRS because she had personal connections with AHRS. So if there's somebody sitting on the commission who personally was friends or knew Mr. Anderson or Mr. Webb or both, is that not morally an issue that they should have abstained from voting on this?
That's something that, as far as those relationships go, that's something that we would have to look into. I don't know the facts on that.
Okay, I'm just asked, I don't know what, if it's a rule, if it's a hardcore line, or if it's just a moral issue. You can vote, you cannot vote. I don't know what the guidelines are on that, so.
So I would guess if there's, like I said, Angela, you said you had a lot more questions. I mean, as we said, we're not opposed to a town hall meeting, so I think some more of this discussion, we need to get more facts. And then we need to have that town hall meeting, so.
Well, and I hope nobody feels like I'm coming after anyone in particular. Like I said, everybody has different things and different questions, and I'd rather come and ask you guys than be sitting back and posting on social media.
Anybody else would like Mike, or can we move on? I will say that I do appreciate the comments, I mean, and the questions. I said this last time, I think everybody up here has the goal of seeing how I want to grow. We may not always have the same viewpoints how, but I think that's ultimately what we're hoping for. I don't know if anybody else on the commission, if you guys have anything you want to add, or if we're ready to move on to the next item. Okay, well then I'm going to move on to communications, and I'd like to take this moment just because we need a little bit of positive comments. One of the things under the communications is item C, a Shad Bailey letter, and I'd like to go, it's a short letter, I'd like to read it. It was sent to Mayor Schamberg, Chief Gruber, and Ms. Boyles. Said, I'm writing to you today to share a deeply positive experience my mother and I had while passing through Hiawatha on the evening of Friday, March 27th. While traveling, we unfortunately suffered a blown out tire. During what was a very stressful situation, Officer Austin Copel pulled over to check on us. I cannot express enough how much his kindness and professionalism meant to us. While we were eventually able to get someone to arrive and change the tire, Officer Copel's presence and genuine concern for our safety made all the difference. Knowing he was out there watching over us allowed us to feel secure during a vulnerable moment. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandfather served in law enforcement, so I have a deep-seated value for the profession. Officer Copel is an outstanding representative of the Hiawatha Police Department and quite simply a great human being. His kindness is a credit to your city and your department. Please ensure this commendation is shared with Officer Copel and placed in his professional file. We will always have a fond memory of Hiawatha because of the character he displayed. With gratitude, Shad Bailey. It's just kind of nice to hear some of the good stuff. Brad, is there anything else?
No.
Okay, we're gonna move on to an executive session to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the city commission recess into executive session in the conference room for 5 minutes to discuss matters of potential litigation. The justification for closing the meeting is to consult with the city attorney to discuss matters of privilege under the attorney-client relationship. The open meeting will resume at 7:44. 7:45 will resume at, I just said, in the commission chambers and to include city commission, city administrator, and city attorney. Second?
Second.
Move to second, any further discussion? Not.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion passed 5-0.
It's Richard Coleman. Sewer.
Yeah, and guess what? It took care of the problem.
Did it?
Yes, it did. Matt said, an issue said, oh. So I'm very grateful.
At 7:45, I'd like to make a motion that the city commission is called back in an open meeting. The commission took no binding action during executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded, Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, seconded, sorry.
Two seconded it.
Nobody.
Nobody seconded, okay.
Oh, Dave did. Andy was talking, we didn't talking. Okay, I'll do it.
I'm high.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to governing body comments. I think I have spoken more than my share of words for tonight, so I've got nothing else. Dave?
I'd just like to take this time to remind the public about our brush pile out by the airport. It's only for organic material out of your yard, tree trimmings, grass, leaves, whatever. I was out there today and there's a bunch of plastic bags and stuff in it. If you take something out there in a plastic bag, you gotta cut the bag off and take the bag with you. We can get in a lot of trouble if you have trash out there, so please observe that and don't leave your bags of trash out there.
Thank you, Dave. Tom?
First off, I'd like to thank the public for coming out, for the comments. It was nice to see that. And I'd like an update on the whole moving of the vacuum.
So I talked to the, contractor last week, and he said he was going to get started this week. And so that's what I.
The bricks out
I'm
there.
there to this.
Are we able to start getting bids on that?
I still don't have, there's still those two easements I'm waiting on, I still have not received.
Anything else, Tom?
Thank you.
Brent?
No.
Or?
I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to come and share your thoughts and opinions with us. It's definitely appreciated. That's all.
And entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
This time we have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Then gives you a second.
Second.
All there?
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion passed 5-0.